If you're like most grounded players right now, you're probably either taking a break from the game or looking for something to do. If you fall into the latter group, this video should be perfect. In one of my recent videos, I showed the 3 places I would build a base in preparation for the next grounded update. In this video, I'll be following the same line of thought in preparing for that update by sharing the resources I think you should stock up on right now. Before we begin, I want to thank all my channel members, especially the Overseer91 and Grey Knight who help make videos like this possible. Let's get started. So I'm going to go through the resources I think you should stock up on right now before the next grounded update, and I'm going to go through them in order that I believe are most important and the ones you should focus on. First up is going to be salt shards, and the reason for that is so you can turn them into salt globs. Now, if you watch my video on insect strengths and weaknesses, you'll know that right now the only insects or creatures in the game that are weak to salt are antlions and the assistant manager. Currently, you only fight the assistant manager once. Antlions, of course, you can fight over and over again because they do respawn every couple of in-game days. I think what's going to happen is either the termites or new insects that are added to the game or new creatures that are added to the game in the next update are either going to be weak to salt or there's going to be some kind of shift so that there's rebalancing. Because right now, salt is the least used upgrade because it's only used against antlions. Of course, you can use it against other insects. It's just not going to be as good as the spicy, minty, or mighty. So I think you should focus on getting salt. Now, the best places to get salt, of course, are going to be the sandbox or the picnic table. So right now I'm in the sandbox and I am right above this cavern. Now be mindful, I am in creative mode right now, so there's not going to be any insects attacking me. So there is usually a antlion right here. I've already taken care of him. We're going to go down here. Now you'll notice that I have the Salt Morningstar and a black ant shield. The reason for this is my preferred method of taking out the antlions. The best weapon, honestly, would be a salty antlion greatsword. That's going to probably do the most damage for you. It's going to do the most damage for you. But for me, I prefer to use the one-handed Salt Morningstar just because it can kill the ones that are wandering around in about 6 hits. Usually you can stun lock them. The ones that are down in the pits like this are going to take, I think, about 12 hits. But it also allows you to use the shield. So when you're fighting the antlions, if you just walk up to them and block the first hit, even if you can't perfect block, just block the first hit with your shield. And then the ones that are wandering around, you can hit them 3 times with this weapon, and it should stun them. And then it'll keep them stunned until you hit them another 3 times, so they're very easy to take out. The ones that are down in the pit, you can just run up into their faces and block, and then you can just start wailing on them. If you're in the right place, they actually can't hit you even when they attack, but if you're worried about it, just do 3 or 4 swings, then block, and repeat the process. So this is the cave that has a ton of salt in it. Now, the other thing you're going to need when you come down here is you're going to need to make sure you have an insect hammer, because you're going to need the insect hammer to break the salt shards. So this is what the salt shards look like if you're not familiar. I'm sure you probably are if you've been playing the game. These are going to take a couple of hits to break. You can cancel and hit them, and then there you go. You get some salt shards. This cave has, I believe, about 40 salt shards in it. It's going to be the best place to get them, and there are 2 entrances. There's the entrance I came in, and you can also come in over here. So both entrances are blocked by an antlion that's down in the pit. You only really need to go on one because you're going to have access to the entire thing. But like I said, do be mindful. We'll see if there's any crawling around here. You can see these crawling around here. If I was in survival, this would be popping out. That's why you want to make sure you have your Salt Morningstar and your shield just so you can block them. Or if you're good enough at perfect blocking, you can just use a salty antlion greatsword. But this is going to be your best bet. You can go here. I think it's every 3 in-game days or so the salt shards respawn. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments below. This is going to net you about 40. There's a couple other places in here that I will show you. There's another antlion cave up here that normally has spicy shards in it. It does sometimes have a salty shard in it. And then you can also find them in the treasure chest. So the treasure chests are scattered around the map, or scattered around the sandbox. I think I just saw one a minute ago. You're going to want to mark where they are if you don't know where they are. But I did just see one. They're easy to see during the daytime because they sparkle, and I think it was over here. These can also sometimes have the shards in it, whether actually there's one right there. Yeah, you can see it's sparkling. So you're going to need the black ant shovel in order to dig those up. They'll give you food. They'll give you sunken bones, they'll give you feathers, they'll give you other things, but they can definitely have shards in them. I've gotten minty shards from them. I think I've gotten spicy and also salty shards from them as well. So make sure you know where the buried treasure are. Those are going to be the best places to get salt besides the cave that's down here. And then, of course, up on the picnic table up here, there's a chance for salt to spawn underneath the paper plates. This is only going to usually net you somewhere between maybe 1 and 4. Sometimes there's 0 up here. So you're going to want to make sure you hit this cave every couple of days in-game. Just go in there, get the 40, and then you'll be able to stock up on salty, because I really believe that either the termites are going to be weak to salt or they're going to do some kind of rebalancing, and whatever after the next update, salt's going to be more used. That would be my best guess, so that there's a more balance, so we're not just focusing on getting spicy or minty or mighty. That salty is actually a huge upgrade. The next most important thing I think you're going to stock up on is going to be tier 3 insect parts. Right now, the only tier 3 insects are antlions and roly-polies. The reason I think it's going to make sense to have this is because you're probably going to end up wanting to use one of these two armors. Now, right now, I use the spider armor. I will most likely try to do the new update content using the spider armor because it's my favorite armor. But based on the information we have right now, termites are going to be tier 3 ants, basically. That's what we've been told. So I imagine they're going to deal quite a bit of damage. And if you've been in the Black Anthill, you're going to know that the soldier ants down there specifically can do quite a bit of damage to you if you're not wearing good armor. So I would recommend, if you haven't already done so, to stock up on some roly-poly parts, antlion parts. The only place you can get antlion parts is inside the sandbox, and you can get the roly-poly parts from the roly-poly. So there's a roly-poly that spawns down here. There's one that spawns somewhere over here in the grass. There's one that's along the sandbox over here, and then the other one is going to be back here wandering around on the picnic table. There's 4 roly-polies currently in the game. You can take them all out in one day, and then I think it's a couple, 2 or 3 days in-game. They should be back, and you can repeat the process. And that's just so you can end up getting all of the tier 3 parts you're going to need, because I really do think that for most people, the tier 3 armor is probably going to be the best bet in taking on the new content. Although, like I said, I will probably try to do it first with the spider armor because it's my favorite armor, but I already have this armor, and I already have tons of parts for these. Getting these parts is going to be super easy if you're geared up, which you probably should be at this point. So make sure you get the tier 3 parts. You're also going to need them for the weapons, because right now the best weapon in the game obviously is the Antlion Greatsword. But if you want to make sure you have a Salt Morningstar, because you never know, if the termites are weak to salt, there's a chance that the Salt Morningstar might be the best weapon against them. If not, if they're like the other ants where the swords typically do well against them, although it's spicy right now, you might want to have parts to make an extra Antlion Greatsword, and of course the Club of the Mother Neem and the Mint Mace. Those are other things. So you never know. You want to make sure you have all these crafted already and have the parts to repair them, as well as the armor, so that when the new content comes out, you can jump right in without having to go farm a bunch of resources just to be able to handle the new insects that are added to the game. The next most important thing I think you're going to get is the Black Ant parts. The reason for this is the Black Ant shield is currently the best shield in the game. So if you look at the Black Ant shield, it's a tier 2 shield. It is made out of Black Ant parts, Red Ant parts, and berry leather. The reason you're going to want this is because unless you're really good at perfect blocking, it's probably your best bet of fighting the new insects, in my opinion, is probably going to be by using a shield with a one-handed weapon, most likely either the Salt Morningstar or a salty, maybe Black Ant Sword. And the thing that's going to be needed here most often is going to be Black Ant parts. More likely than not, you probably have a chest full of Red Ant parts if you've been playing the game. You probably have a ton of berry leather. If you don't have berry leather, I do have a video on the best way to get berry leather. I'll leave a link for that down in the description below, as well as put a card for it up in the top of the corner right now. But the Black Ant parts are going to be the ones you're going to need to get the most. The best place to get them is going to be in the Black Ant Hill or the Trash Heap. Now, you can also sometimes find them up here on top of the picnic table. I've noticed on some worlds that they're up here, and on other worlds they're not as frequent. I don't know what's going on with that, but they are typically up here. You can find like 3 to 6 black worker ants, usually some down here on the bench and like 3 or 4 up here up top. Sometimes they're wandering down below. Very infrequently I have seen them wandering around the yard, but the most likely place you're going to find them is either the Trash Heap, which is down here, which is south of the other Black Ant Hill entrance. Down here you'll find them wandering around the worker ants, sometimes soldier ants. Also, of course, if you go into the Black Ant Hill, you should find a bunch of black worker ants and black soldier ants. So make sure you stock up on the Black Ant parts, because if you follow the technique that I just said, where you're blocking, if you're not good at perfect blocking, your shield is going to take damage. You're going to want to make sure you can repair it. And normally the thing that you're going to run out of fastest is going to be the Black Ant parts, because at least for me, I don't spend a lot of time in the Black Ant Hill or the Trash Heap. I kind of went through that area, got the stuff, and then made my way on to other parts. I do come in the sandbox sometimes, but honestly, with Blade Master, I don't usually have to repair my Antlion Greatsword that much. But Black Ant parts I do have to sometimes come over and find, and this is the place I'm going to go, is either Black Ant Hill or the Trash Heap. Next up on our list is going to be Quartzite Shards, and the reason for this is Quartzite Shards are used to upgrade everything in the game currently up to level 5, and then of course if you want to go the Mighty Path, you're going to need those for level 6 and 7. Quartzite Shards are pretty easy to get now. I did a video on those. I'll leave a link for that down in the description below. Just in case you're not aware, I did mark, this is actually the map that I think I recorded on. All these bullseyes here are quartzite locations. The #1 spot to get quartzite is going to be this spot right here in the haze area. If you have not turned off the haze, this will be a little bit tougher to get. This one spot here will give you, I think it was like between 50 and 50 plus, I can't remember, 50. They did change it a little bit, because I think the quartzite nodes only usually give about 5 or 6 now, where before sometimes they were giving more. This one spot right here is going to be the single best spot to get a ton of them. As you can see, there's a bunch in the haze. Now, I haven't turned the haze off in my main survival save, but because I just haven't decided to do it yet. The other place, if you want a safer place to get it, is going to be over in Burgle's lab. So if you go over in the oak tree lab over here, you're going to find a couple of them up here right when you come in past Burgle to the right. And then as you follow that path around down, you'll end up going into the old anthill, which is right here. And let's see if we can zoom in. So the old anthill is right here. So these actually connect. You'll end up getting, you can get about 100 quartzite from there. There's also some quartzite over by where the larvae spawn down in here. So those are probably going to be your best bets for getting it if you don't want to go in the haze. But if you do decide you want to go in the haze or you have the haze turned off, this one spot right here, kind of where the biohazard symbol is here, right here, this is the spot that has the most. I think there's like 10 or 12 quartzite nodes there. And then, of course, these other ones are scattered around. Sometimes they have 1, sometimes they have 2, sometimes they have 3 or 4. But the safest place and your best bet is going to be over by the Burgle Oak Tree Lab, because you can get 100 here, and the strongest thing you're gonna have to deal with typically is going to be a red soldier ant, which if you're at this point in the game, that's probably going to be pretty easy for you. So make sure you stock up on quartzite shards just so you can upgrade the weapons you need to upgrade, and any new weapons that are added, you'll be able to upgrade them pretty quickly. I'd do this. I think the quartzite respawns every couple of in-game days, like most things, so you should be able to do a run like this. Honestly, if you just focused on quartzite and went around and did the different places here, you're going to find that by the time you finish doing all of it, most likely they'll respawn and you can restart over. Next resource I think you should focus on getting is going to be the minty shards and the spicy shards. The reason for this is with the new update coming out, there is a chance that the new insects added, the termites, and if there's anything else added, could be weak to mint or spice. Or like I said, they could rebalance and you might need those resources to make more weapons. So maybe they change something else to make it weak to salt, so the new things are weak to spicy or minty. In any case, it's always a good idea to have extras of them. And I just happen to be in the sandbox since I was over here a minute ago. This one cave right here, so I am right here. We are right, I think it's a little bit to the west of where the spicy candy box is. I think it's the, what do they call, the hot cha-chas. You'll see the box right here. There is usually between 1 and 3 of these candies down here. These are going to require, they're the hot cha-chas candy. You're going to need to use the level 2 insect hammer to break them. Of course, you can also see sometimes there's quartzite down here and sometimes there's salt shards. This is random down here. There's usually, I'm almost positive there's always one of these. Sometimes I've seen 2 or 3. Another spot you can pretty much always get it is going to be over here in the top corner of the sandbox over here, underneath of this block, this bucket over here. There's always a spicy shard here, and there's also a spicy shard up on top of the sandcastle. So those are 3 that should be guaranteed to be there. Now there's also sometimes spicy shards, I believe, inside of the treasure chest that you can find around the sandbox, as well as over in the trash heap. And I think I must have just mined this one. There's usually one underneath of here. I must have mined it not that long ago. So you should be able to find that one right there. And then there's also one that's over here in the sandbox. Best place to get minty shards is probably going to be the trash heap. You can find minty shards also in the treasure chest here. They're also inside of the ant cave. So the red ant hill that's over here somewhere, there's one that spawns inside of there. But there's also some that spawn down here, so just be aware that you can find them inside the trash heap area, inside of the trash areas. There's usually, I think there's 2 or 3 that spawn over there. I can't remember exactly because, like I said, I don't spend a ton of time over here. But be mindful that if you come across the mint shards or the spicy shards, just to collect them, because you never know if you're going to need them for the next update in order to upgrade a weapon for a new insect, or maybe because they rebalance what's weak to what and what's strong against other things. The next 2 resources we're going to look at are going to be the ones that are used for the base of smoothies. Now, of course, you can use the grub goop to make the base smoothies, but I think if you've gotten to the point where you're farming for the next update, you probably are able to get gum and muscle sprouts. So I'm going to recommend getting as much gum and muscle sprouts as possible, because I think going forward, smoothies are going to be more necessary. As the game has been developing, tougher and tougher insects have been added, tougher and tougher areas, where smoothies are actually going to be made relevant. For example, if you fight the assistant manager, you fight the broodmother, smoothies are definitely going to help you out. If you go into areas with the tougher insects, like the first time you go into the black anthill, first time you go into the sandbox, if you haven't geared up properly, or if you haven't, of course, you probably haven't gotten the gear that you're going to get from those insects, smoothies can definitely be beneficial to you. The best place, in my opinion, to get gum is going to be underneath the picnic table. So this one down here is inside of a footprint. Now to get the gum, you're going to need the tier 2 black ant shovel, and you're going to break it. This one's down here in the footprint. This one's pretty easy to get, so we're over here on the map. There are 4 gum spawns over here that are, now if you haven't, I've turned off the haze on this creative world. I did not on my main survival world. So if you've turned off the haze, you might have to deal with these infected ladybugs down here. If you haven't turned off the haze, they won't be here, so it'll be pretty safe. The only thing that's over here you're going to really have to deal with is going to be the bees that you might have to deal with. So this one you can build up to, which is pretty high. It's kind of a pain to get to. There's another one that is up underneath of the picnic table over here. This one's going to be a little bit easier to get to. If we can see it, I got to get past these planks. There's also, of course, gum inside the haze area underneath the deck that you can get to. I think there's a couple pieces under there. So there is another piece of gum wedged right up there by the lunchbox up there to get to that one. And then, of course, the Minotaur maze up here has one in. So there's 4 gum spawns here. The gum usually drops 2 to 3 pieces. So you can get anywhere from 8 to 12 pieces just from this one spot each day. And the other places I've seen it are under the deck. There's definitely some under the deck here. At least I know there's one right over, where's the haze lab? There's one over here by the deck, like right when you come under it. So right when you go in the haze. And I think there's another 1 or 2 over here. This is a little more dangerous, of course, if you haven't turned the haze off. Plus the other ones over here I think might be near the wolf spiders. Now, of course, for mussel sprouts, the only place you're going to get mussel sprouts is going to be in the pond dome. Have I unlocked that on here? Pond hatch. Yeah, so this is where the pond hatch is. The pond hatch is going to be where it's like the biodome you open up. When you swim through here, it takes you into the dome. That place, I think it has 30, I believe it's 30, it's 24 or 30 mussel sprouts. And these respawn every 3 to 5 in-game days. I'm not exactly sure. I don't go down there very often, but more likely than not, if you hit it up and then come back a couple in-game days later, it should be back. So the reason you're going to want to get both the mussel sprouts and the gum is because they have different effects. So if you have the grub goop, it just gives you the base effect, so you get no bonus. So you'll be able to craft the, like for example, you craft Green Machine, it's going to give you hyper stamina and the heals. If you craft it in a beefy version using the mussel sprouts, it's going to give you an extra healing. So it can be really good for healing. So I would recommend if you're in tougher fights, drinking smoothies is going to be one of your best ways of healing. And the gum, what it does is give you longer effects. So it actually, I think it's twice as long as the regular effect. So if you want long-lasting effects, go with the gum as the base. If you want the extra buff for the extra healing, go with the beefy. So you only get the same amount of time on the smoothie as the grub goop, but it will heal you more. So it can be a really good way of healing if you don't have a bunch of heal bosses or if you don't have a bunch of bandages. The last thing I'm going to recommend gathering before the next grounded update is going to be the ingredients for your preferred meals. Now, right now, I really don't use meals. I know this is kind of like some people use meals, others don't. I don't really find them necessary. In fact, the only time I normally use them is if I'm fighting the broodmother. Outside of that, I don't really find them necessary. I can usually live off roasts. I do believe they're going to patch the food not spoiling on the roasts in the next update. So meals might become much more important if you can't just have an infinite supply of roast on roasting spits all over the map. So I do think meals are going to be more important for that reason. Also, I think they might buff them a little bit because, like I said, not everybody uses them. But if you're going to consider using them, for me, my favorites using are going to be Spider Slider, which is going to be giving you, of course, they give you well fed, and it's going to give you the plus critical hit chance. And then I don't really care for that one. Fungus Spacho can help you with attack stamina. And then Amalot will give you the plus thorns. Now, thorns in this game, you get that on the black ant armor, I believe, as well, where if something attacks you, it does damage back. This is usually underwhelming, so I wouldn't recommend using that one. Honestly, for me, Spider Slider is going to be the best. Now, of course, Quesadilla is going to have the longest lasting because it's a tier 3. But it gives you Sizzle Protection and the Thorns, both of which the Sizzle Protection is only useful inside of the sandbox right now, and Thorns, like I said, is not that great. So for me, Spider Slider is going to be the one that I would make the most of. Now, Spider Chunks, of course, you can get from Orb Weavers or from the Orb Weavers or from the Wolf Spiders, and I think most people know where those are. Berry Chunks, obviously, you get those from the hedge. Nectar, the best place to get nectar on the map, there's 2 places that you can get it. You can get it underneath of the beehive, which is right where I was located, right here on the... Actually, I'm over here. I might as well just show you. The beehive is this way. So underneath the beehive, sometimes you'll find it. We'll go see if there's any under here. This is hit or miss. Sometimes it's under here, sometimes it's not. Sometimes there's bee pollen under here instead of the nectar. You can also get nectar inside of the beehive, but good luck doing that because in survival, if you try to get in there, you're going to have to fight quite a bit of bees. You're also going to have to fly past them. So the beehive is right up there. Sometimes there's nectar on the ground over here, but there is one spot that's almost, it's 100% that's going to be there, and it's usually there every day. I don't see any under here right now. You can get some in there, but the best place I would recommend getting it is going to be up here underneath the flowers that are on the northwestern side of the koi pond. Usually you'll get between, I think, 10 and 15 nectar underneath these flowers, and it's normally between where the mosquitoes spawn. So I think there's mosquitoes spawn down here and over here. You can usually find it without having to deal with any insects if you stay along the wall up here. So make sure you get that nectar so you can craft the spider slider or whatever your preferred meal is. Because like I said, I think meals are going to be more useful going forward, or there's going to be more focus on them, especially if the roasting spit bug gets fixed and we can't have infinite roast sitting there. Now, the only downside of these is, well, the upside to them is you can collect the parts, you can collect the ingredients for it, and these ingredients never spoil for any of these, I don't believe. No, I think they're all the ones that don't spoil. If they do in the future add where you can actually store them in some kind of refrigerating chest or something like that, then you can craft them in bulk. But if not, you're just going to want to make sure you have these, and you can just craft one at a time, and they should last you for most of the day. The quesadilla will last you, I believe, like most of the day, assuming you actually sleep, and the spider slider will last you most of the day, so you don't have to eat anything else. So I was just about finished recording this video when I remembered there were two other things that I didn't mention after I talked about the meal stuff, and I want to throw those in really quickly. That's going to be, you want to make sure you have the resources to make bratwurst, or you need to craft the bratwurst, because the red ant eggs will actually they'll hatch if you don't do this. You want to make sure you have bratwurst stocked up, and on bratwurst, if you want to make them, you can. I don't think it's super necessary, but the reason you want these is because the termite lair, from what we saw in the video, is going to look similar to the anthills. And I know in the black anthill, they added rocks that could be broken by exploding. It's almost, I can't say it's a guarantee, but I think it's very likely there's going to be rocks inside of the termite area underneath the shed, where you're going to have to use a bratwurst or a splatburst to blow them up. Also, if we look at the map, the spot that's over here, there's a rock blocking this entrance underneath of the sandcastle over here in the sandbox. This could be an explodable rock, or it could be they just remove it. So you just want to, in either case, you just want to make sure you have the resources to make these. And then the one other thing is going to be a light source. So the termite video showed inside of the termite lair, it's going to be dark. So unless you want to use the firefly headlamp, I think you're going to want to make sure you stock up on the resources or craft a bunch of torch pluses. So make sure you get the torch plus upgrade from Burgle. I think it's only like 1,500 raw signs. It's pretty cheap. You probably already have it by now. Craft a bunch of torch pluses or stock up on the resources to do so, just so you have a good light source. And then if you don't want to do that, you can always make the firefly headlamp. Although the downside of the firefly headlamp, unless they change it, actually no, it does have 3.5 defense. You're not going to get the set bonus if you're wearing this, but it does have heavy armor defense, and it's 3.5, so it's actually pretty good defense. And you could pair it with either the roly-poly armor or the antlion armor, depending on which one you prefer. For me, I'd probably go with the antlion armor just because it's light, and I prefer light armor over heavy. So you could go with the 2 pieces of the antlion armor and the firefly headlamp, and have that 3.5 defense on all the pieces, and have pretty good defense for the termite area. Those are the resources I would focus on gathering over the next few weeks while waiting for the next grounded update. If you found this video helpful, make sure to click the like button and consider subscribing for more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.